Hello, welcome to the first video in the new series where I dive into real questions about Christianity. Ones that people actually ask, not just the textbook stuff. But I got these questions from conversations from my friends, and I'm incredibly thankful for them for, being honest and being open. So each video I'm going to do my best to give a thoughtful, straightforward answer, not to preach at you, but just to explore the truth. If in this I figure out that Jesus isn't real, so be it. I like to say if the truth cannot be challenged, it's not worth having faith in. So if you've got a question, you got something you always wondered about, drop it in the comments, and I'd love to include it in a future video. Let's get into it. I struggle to believe in a God who would send someone to hell simply because they consciously rejected Christ, even if that person lived a life marked by more good than harm. That's a great point. That is a great point. So I want to start off with this. It says in Isaiah 64 verse 6, this is the King James Version, "But we are all as an unclean thing, and all our righteousness are as filthy rags, and we all do fade as a leaf, and our iniquities like the wind have taken us away." So the Hebrew term here used for filthy rags is pronounced edim, and it's strongly expressive. Scholars generally agree that it refers to menstrual cloths or soiled garments, which, if we understand the context under Mosaic law, were considered ceremonially unclean. And you can see that in Leviticus 15 verses 19 through 24. So the metaphor emphasizes extreme impurity and defilement. Yeah, the theological meaning is that no matter how morally good or religiously devout we may try to be, our actions are still flawed by sin. So human righteousness, it can't earn favor with God. We are dependent on God's mercy and grace. So what is mercy and grace? Mercy is when God withholds the judgment that we rightfully deserve, and grace is when he gives us blessings that we haven't earned. Like a leaf that fades and is blown away, our sins separate us from God and render us spiritually powerless without him. So filthy rags means that even our best moral efforts are worthless in achieving righteousness before God because they're still contaminated by sin. So the verse is basically reminding of our need for God's grace and forgiveness. So let me give you an analogy here. So in John 4 verse 14 it says, "But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst. Indeed, the water I give them will become in them a spring of water welling up to eternal life." So imagine sin as feces. Okay, let's just tickle the idea that someone can have a little bit of sin. So let's say that this person is a glass of water, and inside the water you see a little pebble of feces. Now someone hands it to you and says to drink it. And there's this other guy, he's providing you clean water. Okay? He's providing you clean water, but then this guy hands you the water that's, mostly clean. It's mostly clean, but there's a visual pebble of feces. Just a little guy, he's like probably this big, just a little pebble of feces in the water. Would you drink that water? Don't try to be controversial. Don't try to be edgy and be like, yeah, I drink it. You wouldn't drink it. Why? Because it's contaminated. Any logical person who cares about what they put in their body would not drink that water if they did not have to. That's just nasty. Now imagine ask yourself this. You've probably heard a bunch of people online say this, but ask yourself this, genuinely. Now rewind your mind and see, have you ever lied before? Even something small. Have you ever stolen something? Even something small, like a piece of candy out of a drawer in your grandma's house, or grabbed soda out of the soda fountain at the Wendy's using a water cup. Or have you ever looked at someone who you are not married to in a sexual context? Have you ever cursed at someone that you love? Have you ever cursed at someone that you hated? Have you ever hated anyone? Have you ever gossiped or talked behind someone's back? Have you ever cheated on a test? Have you ever disrespected your parents or someone in authority? Have you ever wished something bad would happen to somebody? Have you ever pretended to be somebody you're not to gain approval? I could go on forever. And this is not to shame you, but this is more of a self-reflection to show the feces inside of our water cup. Most people have done these things at least once. We are a cup of water, and we are filled with dirt and feces. And within dirt and feces, it's like fertilizer. If Jesus plants the seed, then we can grow into a beautiful plant. The law reveals to us the full extent of our shortcomings, showing that we're far worse than we might think. Okay, that's why I asked those questions, self-reflection, because we're worse than we might think. The gospel of Jesus, on the other hand, reveals the incredible goodness and transformation available to us through his grace. And of course, it reveals to us our salvation as well. Okay, now somebody might respond with this. I appreciate the clarity of your explanation about sin and the law and grace, but I still struggle with the idea that a loving God would condemn someone to punishment for what seems like a sincere rejection of Christ, especially if that person has lived a morally good life and contributed positively to the world. And if God's, especially if that person has lived a morally good life and contributed positively to the world, if God is all loving and all merciful, shouldn't he consider the whole of a person's life? Their kindness, their intentions, their contributions, rather than focusing just on whether or not they accepted a specific belief? Is it truly just to send someone to hell for missing that belief when their heart and actions reflected goodness? Also, the metaphor of water contaminated by feces, it shows how sin corrupts us. Okay, then why wouldn't God provide a path of mercy that is inclusive of sincere moral living even without explicit faith? Isn't it a possibility that God judges by the heart that in the light that people have, rather than a strict requirement of verbal or doctrinal confession? And also, your analogy assumes that everyone has a choice to accept Christ. But what about the people who have never heard the gospel or have been raised in different faith traditions? How can it be fair to condemn them when they haven't even had a genuine opportunity to believe? Okay, and what I would say is that that's a really important question. Many questions, actually. A lot of people struggle with this too, but here's how I see it. God is both perfectly loving and perfectly just. This means that justice means that sin cannot be ignored. It causes real damage, actual real damage, and it separates us from God. So I'm about to give you two analogies. This guy named Milton Friedman, he said that there's no such thing as a free lunch. The phrase is often used to emphasize the idea that all choices involve trade-offs, and that there are always underlying costs, even if they're not immediately obvious. So let me give you an example of this. If I were to go up to your mom's car and hit it with a shopping cart and leave a dent, there's two choices that your mom can do. She can sue me and give me punishment, or she can forgive me and tell me, just go, it's okay. So if she sues me, I'll have to pay for the door. I'll have to pay for what I did that's incorrect, okay? And if she forgives me, what happened to the side of the door? It magically returns to normal and it gets fixed. Yep, that's what happens. No, that is not what happens, because the dent is still there, because we live in a reality. We live in real life. So the damage is still done, and your mom forgave me. She still has to pay to replace the door. But mercy means that God does not give us the punishment we deserve, and grace means he offers us forgiveness and a fresh start through Jesus. Jesus paid for the dent that we made in the side of his car. So, about living a good life without Christ, God knows everyone's heart, and he judges fairly. That's in Romans 2:6-16. But the Bible also says that in John 14:6 that Jesus is the only way to truly be restored to God. Without that connection to Jesus, even the best deeds cannot fix the gap that sin creates. Sin creates a gap. It creates a real gap. So Jesus offers to pay for the door. We have the choice to deny his offer. Denying Christ means denying the sacrifice that he made to pay for the door. And for the people who never hear about Jesus, I believe that God is perfectly fair and he will judge them with complete wisdom. And then we can see that in Acts 17 verses 30 and 31. And we can trust that he'll handle that with grace because we know that he's all good and perfectly just. The main thing is that salvation isn't about being good enough, because we will never be good enough. And it's about receiving what we don't deserve, which is forgiveness and a new life through Jesus. That's what changes us from the inside out. In the end, no matter how good we try to be, sin separates us from God and our best efforts fall short. But God's mercy means that he withholds the punishment that we deserve, and his grace offers us forgiveness and new life through Jesus. So while it may seem hard to accept, true justice and love go hand in hand. Jesus paid the price for our mistakes so we can be restored. Even those who haven't heard the gospel will be judged justly. Salvation is not about being good enough. It's about accepting the gift that Jesus offers that transforms us from the inside out. And now I know this might be hard to hear, but if it stirred something in you, if it raised more questions, lean into that. The good news is that God is both just and loving, and he made a way through Jesus. If you're curious, you keep exploring and you don't stop searching, because you will find the truth. Whether it be Jesus or not the truth, if you search with honesty, you'll see if Jesus is dishonest about this. And we all fall short, but God's grace through Jesus is bigger than our failures. The offer is on the table. What you do with it is up to you. If you find any holes in my logic that you can pick off in the video that I'm not seeing, I want you to challenge me and throw me a question in the comments, because I'm always down for a friendly discussion. I'm not down to force my faith on anybody. I'm down for somebody to challenge my faith. If the truth cannot be challenged, it's not worth having faith in. See you guys.